Good day, friends. I hope you're doing well. This is Tracy Brown, and my team and I of non-diet dietitians provide trauma-informed nutrition counseling so that you can feel safer in your own skin. Yeah, so good to be back with you live. I did one video last week, and I think I was just I'm still kind of coming out of, honestly, the fatigue of being sick for a little bit a couple weeks ago, and it's just taken me a while to kind of feel like my brain's a little less fuzzy, and there's that. So thanks for your patience, and thank you all for just being here and part of this community, and thank you for sharing these videos if they feel valuable to you and you have people that you care about that could use the support as well. So thank you. Okay, so today's video is going to be about self-compassion, and obviously that's one of the linchpins of recovery. Most people feel like recovery should be like a diet program, right? Like you just read the book and do the steps and voila, you're done. But that's not really how eating disorder recovery and emotional eating, binge eating recovery works, is that we get into these situations through misattuned, unsafe conditions in terms of relationship stuff around our food and body. So it only makes sense that you can't only cognitively white knuckle your way through this. You've also got to build some internal safe relationship with yourself and be protective towards your own your vulnerability, but you also have to learn who and what to be around in the environment that is, honestly, that just is in alignment with your values and having boundaries with things that aren't. So that's just kind of how it rolls. I have some notes. I actually typed up some stuff that I hardly ever do this, but this is a lot of things that I wanted to keep track of. So it's mostly for me and not because I'm trying to read to you anything, but I hope it just really helps this complex topic be more clear. All right. I'm a good storyteller. But sometimes when things are really, really, really complex, we got to write it out, right? Like an outline. So that's what I have here. And just bear with me if I'm not looking at you, that I'm still here with you. All right. So it's really common. Like we discover that the way we're eating, the way we're doing things just isn't working. You've been in some kind of like plan or program or adherent to something for a long time, and you're finding it's not only healing the inner environment, but it's also long-term. It seems to be making your food actually more out of control. And I know that we get really discouraged by that sometimes. And it's like, what's wrong with me? And why am I keep doing these behaviors or having these thoughts that I don't want to have? And oftentimes we're not actually, that's a good question, the why, the how come. But I actually have some other questions for you that we need to be asking and then to be offering some compassion too, all right? So a lot of times when we're engaging in thought patterns or behavioral patterns that we don't want to be doing, we forget that this stuff is deeply rooted. We know it's deeply rooted, but we forget the mechanism. It's very deeply rooted. So for example, you're struggling with what I usually call deprivation-driven eating. So it feels like you're eating the majority of your food the last half of the day. It's all like kind of high energy food, and I call, food that's, basically higher carbohydrates, higher fat. These are energy foods. They give us energy. They do all kinds of other things too. They have lots of nutrients in them, but they have more accessible energy to us. And we tend to pick those foods where we're in a deficit, whether we're in a care deficit, a permission deficit, or an actual caloric deficit. We're going to pick those foods because they make the most sense for the deficits we're in, right? And we don't look at that because we're still so programmed to see and if you haven't fully broken free from diet culture, I'm talking about here is that if you label certain foods, they have biases as good or bad, and you eat those foods, you think you're bad. So of course, the next thing you want to do is restrict those foods again to try to reset and all that kind of stuff. We don't ask the right questions. I wonder how come I'm eating those foods? And we don't look at the whole picture of the day. I hardly eat those foods in a way that I like or that I enjoy or in sufficient amounts to feel satisfied all throughout the day. Or maybe I'm eating carbs and fat, but I'm not eating the ones I actually want that would be the most satisfying to let that need be settled. All right. So you've got this dilemma going on. You want to stop that deprivation driven eating, but we're not looking at what are the conditions that are actually creating that. It's not lack of willpower. It's always about mental, emotional, physical restriction. All right. So let's say you're stuck in that cycle though. And if we don't look at why, okay, so if part of the deprivation driven eating is because of deprivation, if I know that, how come I'm not doing something different about it? It's because that restrictive cycle is the root of this problem, but it is also the thing that we use to cope with something bigger and deeper. All right. So if we only rely on motivation for behavior change, we just run out of juice basically for that. And that's how we cycle. To take away, honestly, the restriction without understanding the function of it, it just leaves you very vulnerable. And that's why it doesn't stick. So when, let's say that you're trying to stop deprivation-driven eating, what happens is when you stop doing that without a self-compassionate, installing compassion to the function of all that deprivation, it becomes so unbearable. The anxiety, the fear, maybe the sadness, maybe there's some anger, shame. It becomes so unbearable, we just go back to restricting. And then we get back in that deprivation-driven eating cycle again. So my encouragement to you all is to think about somewhere you're feeling kind of stuck and look at that as a vortex. Part of me wants to move forward. Part of me is like, no go, hero. You haven't asked me what the function of this. Why do I keep restricting? And it could be the first thing that everybody tells us, of course, right? Is like, well, if I stop restricting in the daytime, that means I'll eat more at night and then I'll gain weight and then no one will love me. I'll be alone in a ditch. However deep and wide and scary that goes. So, So it seems that the cost of discontinuing restriction is so scary for you, huh? Because if I stop restricting, at the end of the day, I'm afraid of being alone, or I'm afraid of getting sick. And this part of me at this time when this belief system happened doesn't know another way out. Okay. So it sounds like that we need to add some compassion. Oh, you're just trying to do X, Y, you're trying to protect me. So it looks like I need to look at what are my options and what is my now self who's also kind of competent at other things. How can I use that part of myself with, again, more, adequate support to help me stay unblended from this part that feels like the only way out of my fear of rejection or being alone or getting it wrong, being criticized, being hurt, is to keep doing this behavior that I know also causes secondary behaviors that I also don't like. And let's get out of the cycle. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope it was helpful. It was a lot of information and a pretty quick tip. So I do recommend that you take the time to watch this again, take your notes, and apply it. Apply it and let me know what you discovered. I would love to hear about that. Take it into your individual sessions. Reach out to us if you need more support to do that. It's just the first step to helping you get out of the loop and build your hope. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.